Well, good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 291 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where Beregond is no renegade.
Well, I'm not sure Denethor is in a position to make that claim, but pull up a bench in the common room and join us. I'm KnewBettaDoBetta, Lord of the Rings content creator and little expert, and I'm here with the man of the West who will take command in Denethor's absence, because you know he's out of here. He's toast. Alan Sisto, so let's get into it.
It's all because Imrahil's a little busy polishing his van braces, you know.
Yeah, well, not according to the films.
Imrahil's not even around according to the films. But folks, we're glad you're here. Join us as Gandalf is faced with an impossible choice, and Beregond really does save the day in the first of two rather intense episodes on the chapter The Pyre of Denethor, the 7th chapter in Book 5, The Return of the King.
Yo, guys, some of you are hearing this podcast for the very first time, and to you, we bid you a very warm welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, we are reading, talking, speculating, and often joking. We're going to be doing a lot of that on our way through Middle-earth, a few pages at a time.
I'd say there might be a few less jokes over these two episodes just because of the content, but maybe there's going to be a few more because you're with me, KnewBetta. I don't know. We'll have to see.
We're going to try to keep it lighthearted in a funny way. Don't take anything we say too seriously if we get a little off kilter. Like friends chatting at a pub. We'll try to keep that going. Even in the dark chapter, we're glad you have joined us.
And I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's text, we have a visitor here in the common room. Tonight, we are joined by an old friend of the show who first dropped into the common room with me and Sean nearly 6 years ago, back in episode 52. Now, you might know him from his book, Exploring the Hobbit, or from the fact that he's the president of a university that he built from nothing. Or maybe you know him from that time Stephen Colbert gave him a shout out from Hall H at Comic-Con.
I mean, I feel like I'm in the presence of royalty right now. Maybe you know him from Myth Mood or conferences coming up on 10 years now.
Yeah,
maybe you remember his stellar 4-episode run on the Prancing Pony Podcast to start the season. Or maybe you just heard of the OG Tolkien podcaster himself, the Tolkien Professor. However you know him, or you should. Corey Olsen, welcome back to the Prancing Pony Podcast.
Hey, thanks very much. That was quite the introduction there.
You know, we do what we can.
The longer you're here, the bigger the intro's got to be, man.
It's true. It's true.
I felt like I was introducing the Khaleesi or something like.
Well, it has been a few months since we spent time together here in the common room. Corey, how have things been going for you and your manifold projects since then?
Very well. It's been very busy. I've had a few months of kind of the backstage kind of busy where people don't see you being busy. You know, we've been doing lots of stuff going on at Signum University, sort of not quite in the spotlight, an extra amount, but no, it's been great. There's been a lot of really good stuff going on and definitely keeping busy. Have had some wonderful moots. Just got to hang out with a bunch of wonderful Prancing Pony folks down at Tex Moot in San Antonio this past weekend. So
okay,
yeah, we got a big crowd down there in Texas. It's true.
Yeah. No, it's always Tex Moot is always a very PPP flavor.
Nice.
I don't know whether to apologize or send you a bill.
So way back when you were first on the PPP, you mostly talked about your book, exploring J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. But even then, you already began a vaster project, exploring the Lord of the Rings. The long-running show is being turned into a book, or rather a series of books.
Kind of like the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Absolutely. Can you tell us about the project and its unique way of delivering finished project to readers?
So it was 10 years ago now that I wrote Exploring the Hobbit, and that was a really fun book, a really fun project. That the idea of it was to write a book that people could kind of read along with the Hobbit. I go chapter by chapter through the Hobbit, and my idea was people could read a chapter of the Hobbit, then read the chapter in my book on that, and that it would be a good companion, something that would help new readers and also help familiar readers to kind of dig deeper and sort of see the themes and the larger stuff that's kind of going on in the book. So of course it had always been my plan someday to come back and do the Lord of the Rings, but that's a much bigger project. And in the meantime, the next thing I knew, I was founding a university.
Little small things.
It's just you gotta, Bilbo's right about you gotta be careful when you step out your door. Like you really never know, right?
True.
So. Anyway, one thing led to another, and it's been hard to get time to write it. But even more than just simply sort of wanting time to write it, writing the Lord of the Rings book, I think in part I've been kind of putting it off because I have the sense like writing this kind of an analysis, this kind of a companion to the Lord of the Rings, it feels like a sort of a culminating thing, like it's not something I just want to kind of toss off and then move on with my career, right? This is a big deal, writing.
Yeah, this is defining stuff right here.
Exactly. This is really something where I'm hoping to put my whole, kind of career's worth of experience in reading Tolkien into this book. Because I'm not going to do this twice, So
yeah, it will not be a second edition. No,
you better than me for doing it the first time.
Exactly. So, for a while, I was like, I want to try to find the right way to go about this. The right time when I can really take the time to do this. And it's become increasingly clear that there's never going to be a time in my life when I'm just going to be able to be like, and now I shall take the next 2 years and dedicate myself to the writing of this book.
I'll take a sabbatical from the rest of my life, from all the many tasks. Yeah.
Exactly. So I began to think about how can I, but I didn't want to not do it, right? I really want to do it. So I wanted to figure out a way in which I could integrate that, basically, the writing of this book with the work that I'm doing. And it also coincides with the launching of the Signum University Press, where, we had, Serena Higgins is our editor-in-chief there, and Serena and I both have some ideas about, different ways in which readers can interact with books and in which we as a press want to interact with readers, for it to be more of a kind of a community experience rather than simply like, we just send books to folks.
Here's a book, we've printed it, enjoy. Yeah.
Exactly. So Exploring the Lord of the Rings, my book is going to be a series of 6 books. I'm writing one book on each book, not volume, but book. So,
right.
The first one, volume 1 that I'm writing right now, will go up to the Flight to the Ford and then on from there. So it's going to be 6 volumes. It's also like a good deal longer than the Hobbit book. I started off with the aspiration of saying, like, I'm just going to do 1 chapter per chapter like I did. I tried to write chapter 1, and I'm like, no way, man. There is so much more here. Like
27,000 words just for chapter 1.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the chapter, for one thing, the Lord of the Rings chapters are much longer than the Hobbit chapters. Like, just in bulk, much less, not even to mention complexities. So in the end, I've settled to I'm writing about 3 chapters of mine per chapter. I'm still going chapter by chapter through the book, so I'm kind of marching my way through, but I'm writing about 3 chapters of mine per, so it's gonna be a longish project.
Yeah, it will.
I'm writing a chapter a month, so every month I'm writing a chapter of my book and releasing that progressively as we go. So
take your time.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're releasing it progressively. That's interesting.
Progressively, exactly. Yeah. So people can subscribe and subscribe for $2 a month, and you'll get the chapter drops. I'm dropping text chapters, so you can go like a PDF of the latest chapter sent to you, or you can get audio. I'm doing an audio recording as well. So you can subscribe to audio, you can subscribe to the ebook version, and you can get the chapter every month as it drops. It'll be probably about 3 years or so before I'm done with this first volume. It'll be, somewhere around 36 chapters of mine.
If you're writing a chapter a month, that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
For each of the chapters through Flight to the Ford. As of now, I have finished the prologue. I wrote 3 chapters on the prologue to the Fellowship of the Ring.
3 chapters on the prologue.
He's not playing around.
I was surprised. I was absolutely planning. I'm like, well, surely the prologue I can get away with writing 1 chapter.
I don't know.
But man, it is so rich. There's so much. So it's like my first chapter is about the textual frame, the notes on Shire records, and the sort of the persona that Tolkien adopts as the narrator's persona is fascinating in the prologue.
And radically different from the Hobbit's narrator.
Yes, radically different. Exactly. And so then in chapter 2, I talked about his presentation of hobbits in the Shire and Shire history and what patterns we can see there. And then in chapter 3, I focused in specifically on his recap of The Hobbit, which to be honest, many times I remember for a lot of my life, I used to skip that because I was like, I've read The Hobbit. Like, I don't need the recap.
I've written a book on The Hobbit.
Yeah, exactly. Come on now. But when you read the recap carefully, it's fascinating, like what he chooses to say, what he doesn't say, what he emphasizes. It's an amazing kind of turn that he gives to the story. And then when you look at how he is using that turn as a way to set people up for chapter 1, it's just brilliant. So that was the chapter actually just got released last week. Chapter 0.3, it's called 0 for the prologue. Third chapter on the prologue.
See what you did there.
Yeah.
I'm writing chapter 1.1 now, my first chapter on The Long Expected Party. So again, it's still early days in the book. It's going to be ongoing for a while. And if it's going to be 3 years for volume 1, that puts it about 18 years for the whole, all 6 volumes of the book.
Wow.
But I figure that should be fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is going to be my magnum opus. But the really cool thing, the thing that I'm so excited about is the opportunity for people to come along with me. It's been enormously helpful for me as a writer and working, especially trying to integrate this in the midst of all the other stuff that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. To have an audience who's coming along with me, who's reading as we go along. We have sort of 2 different levels in which you can get involved at the Signum University Press. So you can just subscribe. As I said, it's $2 a month for the e-text, $2.50 for the audiobook monthly subscription. And you can just get the drops every month so that you can keep up with it as it goes along. We also have what are called author circles. So you can join my author circle, and that's $25 a month. And that's really the patronage level. Basically. So the people who are in my author circle, they are like my core team. They're actually part of the entire process. I give them drafts. They make comments on the drafts, and I address their comments in my revision. So they're totally a part of the whole thing. I've got, they're helping out in various ways. I've got a Discord server where I'm chatting with them while I'm writing and asking them questions, and they're giving me suggestions and things. They're really neat. Part of my core team throughout. And having them and their support has been just wonderful. So
I really want to get into that. I've been supporting a couple of your other writers at that same author circle level. Just I can't do all of them.
Of course.
But I've been a big part of Jeff Lasala's Silmarillion primer, which is a fantastic project.
Yeah. No, it's been great. So, I definitely, if, folks are interested in that, you can go to press.signumuniversity.org. That's our Signum University Press webpage. And you can find, look up my authors page, and that'll give you some links to go through to subscribe or to join my author circle. But anyway, it's a really exciting project. So it's funny, people ask me like, so, is your book out? And I'm like, well, out, out is complicated. There is going to be a publication.
On what the meaning of the word out is.
Exactly.
Right, I think it's so fantastic the way you can get the pieces of it and you can go along with your process in the same pace that you're doing it. I think that's really new and exciting way to go about doing it.
And the author circle too, to actually be able to be a part of the process. What a fascinating insight.
To be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
They really are my core team. I've been coming to rely on them more and more. I was going to skip the prologue. I was going to start at chapter 1. And it was while we were discussing the very initial draft of my very first chapter that a couple of them were like, man, you really need to write on the prologue. Yeah, you can't skip the prologue. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll go back and do the prologue. So I those whole first 3 chapters.
Yeah, we need a chapter on pipeweed alone,
Exactly.
So one of the interesting things about this Exploring the Lord of the Rings book is that, of course, it's an offshoot or an extension or a continuation, however you want to look at it, of your online discussion Exploring the Lord of the Rings. That you're more than 6 years and 280 episodes into Exploring the Lord of the Rings. The Fellowship hasn't made it to Moria.
No. But the good news is we're almost out of the snow.
That's true.
So as of last night,
real soon, and then they'll get really warm.
Last night, Pippin just got on Boromir's back on last night's session, so that's where we currently are. Yeah, no, we're going quite slowly. A couple paragraphs a week, sentence by sentence, through the Fellowship of the Ring.
So how does that correlate to the book? I mean, is there going to come a time, you said possibly, what did you say now, 18 years?
18 years, yeah.
So is it even 18 years that the podcast will be done? Or are you looking that they'll both be wrapped up around the same time?
No.
Okay, so you're going to cross over with the book and the podcast
over eventually, Yeah, we will eventually. That'll happen several years in the future. Because I say it's going to take at least 3 years even to get to Rivendell. And then by then we'll be maybe who knows? Maybe in chapter 5. We could get to Balin's tomb by then, conceivably,
That discussion about who sent the snowstorm or what caused the snowstorm is going to be, a year at least in itself.
Yeah, no, we've been talking about that. Yeah, we've been looking at that. I think it is going to cross. I've been really enjoying doing in my dreams. I would do that first and come along behind with the book, because really the relationship between the two is the show, the weekly class is all about observations, right? Us digging in and noticing things and seeing patterns and stuff. And there's so many things that we notice that I just have been transformative to my own experience of the book. Probably my biggest surprise in going through book 2 so far has been Boromir. Boromir is like 10 times as awesome as I've ever given him credit.
Thank you.
What have I been saying?
Preach it, brother. I've been saying Boromir,
Check my TikToks. Check my TikToks. I've been saying this.
He's amazing.
He's awesome. Yeah, he really is.
Yeah. But anyway, the idea of, in the book, of course, I can do synthesis, right? I can draw conclusions and really kind of bring things together in ways that we just don't do when we're really, really close to ground level all the time.
That's true.
So we'll see what happens when we get closer to the crossover point. I would love to be writing the book in, following along behind the class. But then again, the class is slowing down. 18 years might seem like a long time, but it is nothing to how long we're projected to be. I just had my annual check-in. Matt Cannon, who's
the timekeeper
and patron of the Prancing Pony as well.
Yeah,
he does the statistical analysis and tracks, and he was telling me he had this. We had this solemn conversation at TextMoot this past weekend where he was like, "So I've had to invert my metrics." And I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, I used to measure our progress in this class in pages per session, and I've had to now switch to sessions per page.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
You're changing the very physics of this thing, man.
That speaks volumes.
Space. They mean nothing to you. You're like Superman now.
Somewhere projecting up into the 2060s or something as to when so it's
okay.
It's a solid 40 years that we're projecting to go from here. So
my goodness.
Well, we here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, we want to thank you very much for your hard work. We want to thank you for all the time that you put in. Even though I'll probably be dead and gone by the time you finish.
Yeah, you better get some of that mithril, man. That mithranium.
Well, fortunately, I come from a long-lived family on my mother's side.
Good.
So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us at the Prancing Pony Podcast once again. And, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate the work you're doing. We're looking forward to everything from podcasts to books to, the broken down sessions, everything, all the discussions, all the insight that you have and your deep knowledge. So thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, man, it's been my pleasure. Corey, the door's always open here at the Common Room for you, and we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Very good.
All right, folks, before we get into tonight's discussion, there is one important thing. This episode and next week's, of course, openly and frankly talk about the issue of suicide. Now, that's obviously a very sensitive matter, and for many, it can be a trigger. Just know that if you are struggling with thoughts of self-harm, help is available. In the U.S., you can dial 988, just like you dial 911 24 hours a day. Obviously, every other country that we broadcast to has help available. Please don't be afraid to ask for it.
And we certainly won't be offended if you fast forward parts or even skip through the episode altogether if it's too much. With that, it's time to get started. Alan, you have our first reading tonight.
All right. When the dark shadow at the gate withdrew, Gandalf still sat motionless. But Pippin rose to his feet as if a great weight had been lifted from him, and he stood listening to the horns, and it seemed to him that they would break his heart with joy. And never in after years could he hear a horn blown in the distance without tears starting in his eyes. But now suddenly his errand returned to his memory, and he ran forward. At that moment Gandalf stirred and spoke to Shadowfax, and was about to ride through the gate. "Gandalf! Gandalf!" cried Pippin. And Shadowfax halted. "What are you doing here?" said Gandalf. "Is it not a law in the city that those who wear the black and silver must stay in the citadel unless their lord gives them leave?" "He has," said Pippin. "He sent me away. But I am frightened. Something terrible may happen up there. The Lord is out of his mind, I think. I am afraid he will kill himself. And kill Faramir, too. Can't you do something?" Gandalf looked through the gaping gate, and already on the fields he heard the gathering sound of battle. He clenched his hand. "I must go," he said. "The Black Rider is abroad, and he will yet bring ruin on us. I have no time." "But Faramir," cried Pippin, "he is not dead. and they will burn him alive if someone does not stop them." "Burn him alive?" said Gandalf. "What is this tale? Be quick." And we'll stop there. The passages tonight are going to be a little shorter than usual, I think.
All right. So we come back to the moment that you left off at the end of the Siege of Gondor in about mid-March.
Yeah, that was a while back. Kind of feels like just yesterday, but yeah. But that was the last time that we saw Pippin, right? I mean, he'd been running down to the first level of the city, even though he was wearing his Citadel Guard stuff, when he heard the cry of the Witch King and the boom of Grond breaking the gate.
We read, forcing himself on against the gust of fear and horror that shook him almost to his knees, Pippin turned a corner, opening in a wide place behind the city gate. He stopped dead. He had found Gandalf, but he shrank back, cowering into a shadow.
Right. So that was Pippin, right? Cowering into a shadow. This was the last time we saw him. So the time frame with each chapter or each pair of chapters, it seems we pop back in time to the other folks in the story. Yeah. And here we're coming back to Pippin, and he's just been cowering. After the narrative gives us the arrival of Grond, we get that amazing confrontation, one of my favorite confrontations in the whole book, between Gandalf and the Witch King. That line, "and all fled before his face." All save one, right?
Yes.
I mean, I love that, because Gandalf does the same thing he does to the Balrog, right? "You cannot enter here," and the huge shadow halted. So I got to say, this is a good point to ask you, KnewBetta. Who wins this confrontation between Gandalf and the Witch King? Talk to me.
My opinion and my thought process here is very different from most people's thought process.
Yeah.
I'm taking into account many things, many things. So I'm taking into account Gandalf's power that he's claimed, that he's always had, but now he's claiming it as the White Wizard. It's not so much as, oh, he got such a power boost. Now he knows, hey, Saruman is turned on us. I got to take my place as the White Wizard. He turned it down when he first came over from Valinor. And as in the story, he can't use more power than he's allotted in that form, in that man form. So he's still going to be the Gandalf that we know, but he's just using a little bit more power because he's the leader now. He's the only one. Radagast is off somewhere doing a bunch of nothing. The two blues are gone in the south and the east. We don't know where they are, and Saruman has betrayed us. So Gandalf has to be one to take charge. And it's really to inspire, and it's really to, unite the people against Sauron.
Yeah, that is his mission, right? That's absolutely his mission.
He's not going to be out here wrecking shop. He's not going to do that. Now, the Witch King is full-fledged, full force. The Witch King of Angmar unveiled.
Right.
It's very important. People look back to the chapters in the Fellowship of the Ring where the Witch King is just on a hunt for the ring. He's not supposed to be revealed. They're known as the Black Riders. They're hidden. They're on a secret mission. Sauron doesn't want everybody to know what they're doing. He just wants to get the ring and get out of there, because alerting people too soon allows people to know their position with the war. Sauron does not want that. So unless the Nine openly cross the river, you're not getting them at their full power. You're not supposed to feel that presence, that force. Now you're facing the Witch King openly coming from Minas Morgul in open war with his crown, leading an army. It's different.
Okay.
It's very different.
So you think that when Gandalf says, "You cannot enter here," the Witch King could? I
think the Witch King could have entered here. I think it would have been an epic battle. But there's a few things we have to take into account. It specifically says in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields that the only weapon that could have done such harm to the Witch King is the blade that Merry possesses, and one that Pippin possesses, but that's neither here nor there.
Sam had one too, but he wasn't nearby.
Gandalf doesn't have that weapon.
No, he doesn't have a blade of Westerness. It's true.
So Gandalf can be harmed. As we see, he dies in his battle with the Balrog, right? So he dies and has to get brought back. It's kind of a cheat code that Iluvatar does for him.
It's Iluvatar. Iluvatar doesn't need the cheat code. He's
like, all right, I'm going to bring it back.
He's the developer here. He can do whatever he wants. Yeah.
But in this battle, for argument's sake, they're going to be battling right then.
All right.
And who would win right then? I think the Witch King is going to take it. He has many weapons. He has his fear. His fear is going to be fighting.
His fear is something else. There's no doubt about that.
And Sauron is bolstering his power as well. People forget that.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, I would lead my argument by pointing out the Witch King is stronger than people think he is right now. If we go to the letters of J.R.R. Tolkien, there's the famous letter 210, which is the one that Tolkien wrote about that awful script, the Zimmerman script. So this is the letter to Ackerman explaining that. One of the things he talks about is the power of the Nazgul, but specifically the power of the Witch King. And he says in a paragraph there The Witch King, their leader, is more powerful in all ways than the others, but he must not yet be raised to the stature of Volume 3, talking about this moment, talking about the return of the king.
Yes.
Tolkien says there, put in command by Sauron, he is given an added demonic force. So he is more powerful now than he was when he was searching for the ring, for instance.
Absolutely.
But the letters also tell us something about Gandalf, and that's where I'm going to hinge my argument. So I'm going to go to letter 246 for this one. And this is where Tolkien's talking about Frodo's failure at the cracks of doom, right? One of his readers had written in and talking about Frodo's failure. And during that conversation, which in and of itself is fantastic, Tolkien speculates about a possible confrontation between Frodo and Sauron had Gollum not intervened and fallen into the lava with the ring, right? What if Gollum's not there, Frodo claims the ring, and now Sauron has to go deal with some guy who's got his ring on in the volcano?
Yeah.
So Tolkien says about that, Frodo would have been utterly overthrown, crushed to dust, or preserved in torment as a gibbering slave. Now, he goes on to point out this. In Sauron's actual presence, none but very few of equal stature could have hoped to withhold it from him. Now, he rules out all mortals, including Aragorn, he kind of explains that. Like, look, I know Aragorn did defeat Sauron in the Palantir, but A, he had the right to use that thing because he's the rightful owner, and B, the battle happened over a distance. He's trying to make the point that face-to-face, very few could actually stand up against Sauron.
Absolutely.
I say all that to say this. He then writes this, of the others, only Gandalf might be expected to master him, being an emissary of the powers and a creature of the same order, an immortal spirit taking a visible physical form. He goes on to speculate that maybe Galadriel and Elrond might have been able to as well. They certainly think they would have. Galadriel thinks she would have been able to. And here's the thing. I submit that if Tolkien believed Gandalf had a chance to master Sauron in a face-to-face confrontation because he's an emissary of the powers, and especially because he has been juiced, right? This is Gandalf 2.0, who has more powers than he did the first time. I think he absolutely could defeat the Witch King. In fact, he actually has defeated the Witch King because one of the things he does, you talked about it yourself, that he inspires people. Yeah. It was his inspiration of Theoden that led to the arrival of the Rohirrim, which led to him saying, you cannot enter here. And guess what? You can't, because the plans that I set in motion days ago are coming to fruition now. So you're not coming in.
I see what you did there.
It's a fun talk, though. I'm not going to. I still invited you on the show, so clearly it's not a disqualifying thing.
Now, question real quick before we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does Gandalf possess the ring at this point, like Frodo possessed the ring? Is that what he's saying? Because if Gandalf
in the Sauron thing, in the Sauron battle,
yes,
yeah, in the idea of that, then certainly. But
in that case, I absolutely would. Gandalf would absolutely.
I don't think Gandalf needs the ring to defeat the Witch King. I think he'd need the ring to defeat Sauron. But I don't think
to defeat Sauron is my point, because he has the ring, which is literally Sauron's own power in itself. So he's adding on to his own Maiar power on top of that. With Sauron's power.
The thing is, the Witch King was always a mortal. He was always a mortal.
He's always a mortal.
So he's never going to have that Maiar power. So I'm going to say Gandalf. But I hear you. I like your thinking. I like the way you come about it. I just think you're wrong. But that's okay, man.
That's all right.
All right.
I like your points. I like how you did that.
A lot of times I lead it with the letters because the letters give us so much more insight into what Tolkien thought kind of after the fact. Like he would come and go, you know what, now that I think about it, this or this. And yeah, sometimes it's hard to reconcile. And obviously if the text says something, then if it's clear, then we have to go with the text. But it is interesting when there are still questions to be had. So
Gotcha, man. That was awesome, man. I appreciate it, man.
Good stuff.
So finally, we get to the crowing of the cock before the dawn, and the horns of the Rohirrim.
Oh, the horns! We get the horns again, man.
The chills that like when the Rohirrim come, like the Witch King immediately he's like, oh man, he has to.
I got to deal with this.
I got to deal with this. I don't have time for this right now. Like he's literally at the doorstep of winning. Yeah, the crowned achievement is destroying Minas Tirith. He's right there.
Absolutely.
And he's like, I'll be right back.
That's right. Stay right here, man. Stay right here. We'll finish this chat. So that is the moment, right? The moment of the arrival of the Rohirrim. That's the moment at which we return to start this chapter, and it's the retreat of the Witch King from the gate after the arrival of Theoden and his riders.
Yeah. Pippin, who's been cowering before, now stands and listens.
Oh, man.
And this painfully beautiful moment, it seems to him that they would break his heart with joy. He can't even hear a sound. Like, this is the rest of his life without tears. Like, that's such beautiful writing right there.
Isn't it? They would break his heart with joy. Oh,
invigorated and enthralled with, like, the sound is like uplifting his spirit. Like, he doesn't even know how to process it. Like,
no. And it's really the flip of what's just happened to him, right? I mean, he's come along and he's heard Grond, he's heard the Witch King's cries, and he's been in this terrifying presence so much that it's made him cower into this shadow and just kind of hide there and freeze. And now he's been lifted up, right? This isn't just like I'm back to normal. Now I'm way above that. I'm experiencing this blissful joy, this overwhelming joy, poignant as tears, right? I mean, it sort of makes me think of the things that Tolkien has said about the eucatastrophe. I'm not making light of anybody who's suffering from PTSD. This is almost the reverse of that, though, isn't it? I mean, he's now, instead of being triggered by this sound and having to endure a suffering, he hears this sound and he relives the eucatastrophe every time he hears horns for the rest of his life. It's beautiful.
And this is exactly what you were just discussing with me. Yeah. The difference with Gandalf and the Witch King. Literally.
Oh, we're never going to let that go, are we? Is that what you're saying? No,
I'm just saying that this is a display, full hand-on display of Pippin dealing with the fear of the Witch King, which is hindering him, which is handicapping him.
And we'll see the same thing happen to Merry, right? Yeah.
Gandalf is that opposite, where now the things that he has done has set hope and joy and.
Oh, that's a great observation.
And now Pippin is like, I don't even know how to. Yeah, Gandalf did that.
Because Gandalf did do that. You're absolutely
Gandalf did that.
right.
Exactly what you said. So. Very good point, and it gives strength to your argument, I must say. It gives strength to your argument.
Thank you. I really like that observation. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. I mean, obviously he suffers when the Witch King comes along, and now the joy that he's experiencing is directly related to Gandalf. Oh, beautiful stuff.
And check out what he does next. Because of that courage that Gandalf, which he has the Red Ring of Fire, which gives courage to those around him. So he recalls why he's here.
Yeah.
Runs to Gandalf, who's about to leave the gate, and calls him.
Yeah.
Gandalf doesn't hesitate to remind Pippin of his obligation at the center.
Right. Yeah, I don't want you to get in trouble, Pip.
Like, you're not supposed to. They're very serious about their.
Yes, they are.
They're very serious about this. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Pippin, who Elrond did not want to come.
That's right.
On the journey, is the one that explains something very important to Gandalf. And Gandalf has to change of heart. So he explains he's been given leave.
Right.
Or sent away.
Right. And that's when he launches into his story, right? I mean, he's real quickly trying to dump this information on Gandalf, right? He's afraid that Denethor, who is out of his mind, may try to kill both himself and Faramir.
And he asked Gandalf if he can't do something like, Gandalf, can you help? And Gandalf is really like, dude, what?
He's in a tough spot, man.
Yeah, he's like, if I don't go out there, it's going to be bad. Something bad is going to happen.
That's right. The Witch King's out there, and the line, he will yet bring ruin on us. What happens if Gandalf does that, right? So what happens if Gandalf leaves? Faramir dies. Does Theoden survive? Remember, because he talked about maybe I could have saved him.
I think Theoden does survive. I think the horse in itself Snowmane would not have reared up as such with Gandalf and his presence of the courage that he instills in people and animals and anybody who's around. Things that
and maybe and you don't know this because you haven't heard the episode yet because we were just talking about it last episode with Sean. But we speculated that if Gandalf's on the field, the Witch King's going after him instead, not after Theoden, because right now he's going after the biggest threat, and that's going to be Theoden leading this relief force.
Yeah.
Gandalf,
absolutely.
On the other hand, if Gandalf's present, you got to take him out first. So maybe he's targeting him, and that's what allows Theoden to survive.
It's a slippery slope with that because
it is.
The Witch King is still there. Yep. I don't think Gandalf obliterates him right away to where he's out of there. I think it's a battle.
He can maybe drive him off.
But he's going to come back. Yeah, you can't kill him. He's going to come back. Merry misses his opportunity to stab the Witch King.
That's interesting. If Gandalf drives him off, maybe that helps the battle, but it doesn't defeat the Witch King because it would take Merry and Éowyn together to do that.
The Witch King is Sauron's literal arm. He is his force.
His presence on the battlefield in many ways.
Very important. So Pippin plays his last card. Faramir isn't dead yet.
Yeah.
Denethor is threatening to burn him alive.
Yeah.
Gandalf doesn't leave.
Okay.
Instead, he asks for more details.
Right. Now you got my attention, Pippin. Okay, he's going to do what now? Burning what? This does not sound all right. So we'll come back to that, folks, right after the break. Now, before we get back to the text and Pippin's rapid-fire explanation, we want to make sure you know that even after you've listened to the episode, well, there's a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony Podcast.
The PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Now, on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast. Follow the page, but be sure to join the group for some great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/Prancing Pony Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We're simply at Prancing Pony Pod.
That's right. And finally, my all-new daily podcast, Today's Tolkien Times, will be launching really soon. It's a short 6 to 8 minute show available wherever you get your podcasts, so Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, etc., but also available in video form on YouTube. Each weekday will feature something different, from Mailbag Monday to Word Nerd Wednesday to Silmarillion Saturday. So join me on this new adventure. Visit TolkienTimes.com and follow at Tolkien Times on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, or find me on Facebook at Today's Tolkien Times. And finally, folks, if you enjoy the Prancing Pony Podcast, please consider supporting the show by joining the fellowship of the podcast. And when you do, you get a lot. You get an active Discord community that includes live episode recordings. You also get postscripts, episodes without digital ads, and a lot more.
Like free merch and live Discord hangouts. But you could also become a part of our Questions After Nightfall episodes, or even join us as a guest in the North Wing. So please go to patreon.com/Prancing Pony Pod to show your support and join the fellowship of the podcast.
Now, you can also help us out by giving us a rating and review over on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify. And please recommend us to your friends. For now, though, let's get back to the text. KnewBetta, you're up.
All right. Denethor has gone to the tombs, said Pippin, and he has taken Faramir. And he says we are all to burn, and he will not wait. And they are to make a pyre and burn him on it, and Faramir as well. And he has sent men to fetch wood and oil, and I have told Beregond. But I'm afraid he won't dare to leave his post. He is on guard. And what can he do anyway? So Pippin poured out his tale, reaching up and touching Gandalf's knee with trembling hands. Can't you save Faramir? Maybe I can, said Gandalf. But if I do, then others will die, I fear. Well, I must come, since no other help can reach him. But evil and sorrow will come of this. Even in the heart of our stronghold, the enemy has power to strike us, for his will it is that is at work. Then, having made up his mind, he acted swiftly, and catching up Pippin and setting him before him, he turned Shadowfax with a word. Up the climbing streets of Minas Tirith they clattered, while the noise of the war rose behind them. Everywhere men were rising from their despair and dread, seizing their weapons, crying one to another, Rohan has come!
I love this, right? Pippin's, let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up. I mean, this is very much like, I don't have time to give you the full story. So it's this and this and this and this. Denethor's taken his son to the tombs. I love this. He says, we're all going to burn. Why even wait for it? I'm just going to set a fire myself. I'm going to get a pyre set ready to go.
Not just to burn himself to death, but to burn Faramir as well.
That's right.
He's gone so far as to send his men to get fuel for his fire, which I can't even imagine.
I can't fathom that.
Being one of these men, but you're like bound to an oath. Oh, it's such a tough place.
I got to do what my Lord says. And Gandalf does address that later on. It's very interesting to see him basically say, hey, set all this stuff aside because you guys reach following orders and doing what you believed you needed to do. But wow, that is a hard spot to be in. Yeah. Now, Matt and I touched on this back in episode 283 at the end of the chapter, The Siege of Gondor, when we talked about Denethor's intent to burn like heathen kings. We'll touch more on it again when, for the second time, Tolkien uses the word heathen.
I think Tolkien is, referring to, the kings in Numenor. Which they have a record of the history of what happened there. Yeah,
so, certainly the wicked kings, the ones that, our Farazan literally worshiping Sauron. That certainly counts as heathen to me, yeah.
Pippin explains that he's even told Beregond, but he fears that Beregond will be too afraid to leave his assigned guard post. So let's revisit that moment. Going back to the Siege of Gondor, we read that Beregond, after Pippin told him what was going on, responded, "The Lord does not permit those who wear the black and silver to leave their post for any cause, save at his own command." So he, just like we were talking about, he's stuck in that horrible oath that he has to his Lord and to this country to, do as a guard of the citadel, to do whatever his Lord says. And then his love for Faramir, and he's listening to somebody he does not know Pippin like that.
Right.
He doesn't know Pippin, but he knows, this is a war happening right now? Is he thinking, hey, Sauron's will is at work? What is going through his mind at that time?
Yeah, Beregond is an interesting character. I know that they could not possibly have done this in the films, but it would have been nice to get Beregond and to get that conflict, because we get that whole conflict between, following orders and doing the right thing. And this is, going back to the moment you just read, Pippin told Beregond he believed he had a madman to deal with, not a lord. Okay, sort of maybe taking away some of the authority or the moral authority, at least, that Denethor would have, and that Beregond would then have to choose between orders and the life of Faramir, the life of the man that he respected and loved. I mean, we see that in every moment when Beregond talks about Faramir. And we'll see what he chose in just a bit.
Yeah. After relating all of this, Pippin touches Gandalf's knee. Remember, he's on Shadowfax as Pippin is on foot, and asks him, "Can't you save Faramir?"
I love that moment. Just trembling hand, he reaches up, he touches Gandalf's knee. There's a tenderness, there's a desperation, there's almost an appeal to his humanity, isn't it?
But the thing that we must remember about Gandalf was taught by Nienna.
Yes.
The goddess of pity.
Yeah.
So this, and the physical touch, he's looking down at this cute little hobbit. This is what Gandalf does. He knows pity, and this is why he is the best at what he does. For all the free peoples of Middle Earth, he pities them. He knows what they've been through, what they will go through. I think.
Are you saying Gandalf pities the fool? Are you saying Gandalf pities the fool?
I like that, Gandalf. Gandalf is Mr. T in this situation. He pities the fool. He knows the vibe.
Fool so, took, I love it. Yeah.
I think that is really important.
It is.
He's looking up at him like a little puppy. Like,
it'd be hard to say no to Pippin in that situation. I mean,
absolutely.
You're on this horse and you're looking down. I mean, Pippin's already a small guy, and now you're really looking down on him, and he's just pleading with these big eyes like, Faramir is going to die, and not just die. He's going to die this horrible, horrible death, killed at the hands of his father by fire. Okay, well, Gandalf acknowledges, look, I might be able to do something. And he says might, right? I mean, it could be too late. By the time they get up there, it may have already happened. But then he points out that even in making this attempt, others are going to die. There's a calculus here that I have to make. Others will die if I try this, and it might even already be too late.
Yeah. I think he knows that the Witch King will be back.
Oh, yeah.
So he's like, And, to my point, I don't think he thinks he can beat the Witch King, but he wants to delay him or stop him and help.
Or at least draw him off.
Off or something.
Yeah.
So it's an impossible decision. But
it is.
I think he wants to stop the tradition of men doing evil upon themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're causing evil and amassing evil upon themselves through fear and madness that Sauron is imbuing in them. So he's like, I got to break this cycle. I got to save Faramir.
Got to stop this.
Faramir is somebody who brings hope. And
that's right.
Just like me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think he also has this part of the calculus too. Like, I have to help because nobody else can help Faramir, right? Faramir doesn't have anybody to help him. The people on the battlefield, they may die because I'm not there. They're not necessarily a lower priority, but they can help each other. They have each other. Faramir has nobody. And so I have to make this decision. I have to go help Faramir.
Yeah, they have great captains of men. He knows Aragorn's coming.
Yeah,
he knows that Theoden's down there. He knows that
Imrahil's down there.
Imrahil,
or will be. Yeah,
yeah. He has many things of help that places he can turn to.
And it's the right call because, like we just discussed, if he does go down there and drive off or draw off the Witch King, does the Witch King get killed?
Yeah.
Does Eowyn get to slay him? Does Merry, take the Westernest sword and break the sinews that were holding his unseen body apart, together? No.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Yeah.
And he makes it clear that evil and sorrow will resort from this.
Yeah, 100%.
He knows that the utter certainty that the lives on the Pelennor field will be lost because he's not there to fight the Witch King. He adds that this is Sauron's will at work. And the power has, struck to the very center of Minas Tirith. And that's another example of Sauron's great power, his power of division, his power of his thinking ahead. To do that to Denethor. He totally made Denethor despair like that.
Exactly. And we'll talk about that at length next week. And we won't even stop talking about that next week, right? I mean,
man, I can't wait.
We're going to get to Gandalf's discovery about the truth about Denethor's farsight, as well as the truth about Sauron's will being at work and how that happened. We'll get to all that next week for sure.
Now that he's made his decision, he doesn't hesitate. He grabs Pippin and he heads to the Citadel on Shadowfax.
That's right.
He knows, all right, now that I made this choice, we got to go.
No hesitation.
We got to go. It's no hesitation.
Exactly. Now, during their ride, we're given a glimpse at how the remaining men of Minas Tirith are coping with this battle. They're recovering from their despair and dread. They're getting ready to join the fight now that Rohan has arrived. It's great.
Yeah, in this part, we had to skip. They even run to Imrahil, who asked Gandalf where Gandalf is headed. After all, we needed all the strength we can gather.
That's right. Dude, where are you going, man? I'm going down to the battlefield. Where are you?
What's going on, my guy? You are literally, because we got to remember, Imrahil is in charge, right? As far as if Denethor is indisposed or something. Imrahil is his brother-in-law, and Imrahil is the next to be in line. Faramir, remember, is out of commission, so he technically would be arrived. But Gandalf has taken up. Gandalf has taken up that position. Gandalf is acting steward while things is going on. So he's like asking you, well, where you going? We need you. People are inspired by you. When Gandalf passes, everybody starts taking up arms again. And he agrees. He says, he'll come when he can, but he has to go.
I got a job to do. Yeah.
So now he like kind of gives Imrahil like, hey, you take care of this.
Do it. That's right. In fact, he actually gives Imrahil command of the forces of the city. Says to him, you take command in the Lord's absence. I love this, though. Imrahil doesn't say, hey, where you going, man? He says, whither now, Mithrandir? Such an Imrahil line. I love it. Speaking of Imrahil, can we stop for just a moment and talk about the awesomeness of this guy? I know he didn't show up in Jackson's films, but what a dude. I
have been waiting for this.
I bet you have.
I love Prince Imrahil. He's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, he is.
Vast reasons why. So we look at Faramir and how beloved he is. We hear Beregond talk about him and, Faramir. They shout his name and they love him. Yeah. Imrahil is no different.
That's right.
Imrahil is no different. When he comes with his Swan Knights from Dol Amroth, they're like, Imrahil is here,
700 infantry plus his mounted knights.
Yes.
Far and away the most helpful force they've got. Yeah.
Imrahil has elven blood in him.
Yep.
Imrahil is more Númenórean than most. Imrahil is that guy.
Yeah, he is.
And he is the one that actually saves Faramir from the darts on the field. A lot of people, they look at the movie and Gandalf does drive away the Nazgul, but Imrahil is the one who grabs up Faramir and brings him back to the city.
When Denethor releases that sortie, that's right.
Yeah, so Imrahil is that guy. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. I love Imrahil, man. He's awesome. He also is the one who actually notices that Éowyn is still alive.
Yeah, saves her. I mean, she would have died. She would have died if he didn't notice that.
She would have been out of here. So he saves her.
He does. And then I love the fact that he's grouped with Aragorn and Éomer as these mightiest in arms on the battlefield, the guys that were unscathed because nobody dared approach them. He's in that sentence with Aragorn and Éomer, and now he's going to command the city too. This is Imrahil.
Yes, he follows Aragorn to the Battle of the Morannon and survives the fight as well. He's no joke. He's not fodder. You know what I'm saying? And his daughter is the one that ends up marrying Éomer.
That's right. That's absolutely right, man. He is a guy. I love this guy. I want more of Imrahil, but there's a lot of characters I want more of. I want more of Beregond too, right?
Absolutely.
I want more Yorith actually, but we haven't gotten to her yet. So
we got some stand-up people and the lords of these cities.
Yeah.
Like Dol Amroth, Gondor, Rohan, these places that, I know it says that in the Battle of the Last Alliance, such princes and things were arrayed that never will happen again. This is the closest we're going to get.
Yeah. I think
this is the closest we're going to get, So we have Aragorn, a great captain of men. We have Elodon and Elro here. We have, what I'm saying? It's crazy. Like the people that's there, this is no joke. We have some great fighters, you know what I'm saying? And Imrahil is one of them.
Absolutely.
So as we know that Imrahil is the one that did these great things, and we know he's a great guy. Let's jump back into the reading and let's hear what you got to say.
I'm going to pick up a couple paragraphs later as Pippin and Gandalf arrive up at the Citadel. At the gate of the Citadel, they found no guard. Then Beregond is gone, said Pippin, more hopefully. They turned away and hastened along the road to the closed door. It stood wide open, and the porter lay before it. He was slain, and his key had been taken. Work of the enemy, said Gandalf. Such deeds he loves. friend at war with friend, loyalty divided in confusion of hearts. Now he dismounted and bade Shadowfax return to his stable. For, my friend, he said, you and I should have ridden to the fields long ago, but other matters delay me. Yet come swiftly if I call. They passed the door and walked on down the steep, winding road. Light was growing, and the tall columns and carven figures beside the way went slowly by like gray ghosts. Suddenly the silence was broken, and they heard below them cries and the ringing of swords, such sounds as had not been heard in the hallowed places since the building of the city. At last they came to Rath Dinan and hastened towards the house of the stewards, looming in the twilight under its great dome. "Stay! Stay!" cried Gandalf, springing forward to the stone stair before the door. "Stay this madness!" For there were the servants of Denethor with swords and torches in their hands. But alone in the porch upon the topmost step stood Beregond, clad in the black and silver of the guard, and he held the door against them. 2 of them had already fallen to his sword, staining the hallows with their blood, and the others cursed him, calling him outlaw and traitor to his master. Even as Gandalf and Pippin ran forward, they heard from within the house of the dead the voice of Denethor crying, "Haste, haste! Do as I have bidden! Slay me, this renegade! Or must I do so myself?" There upon the door, which Beregond held shut with his left hand, was wrenched open, and there behind him stood the lord of the city, tall and fell. A light like flame was in his eyes, and he held a drawn sword. But Gandalf sprang up the steps, and the men fell back from him and covered their eyes, for his coming was like the incoming of a white light into a dark place, and he came with great anger. He lifted up his hand, and in the very stroke, the sword of Denethor flew up and left his grasp, and fell behind him in the shadows of the house. And Denethor stepped backward before Gandalf as one amazed. "What is this, my lord?" said the wizard. "The houses of the dead are no places for the living. And why do men fight here in the Hallows when there is war enough before the gate? Or has our enemy come even to Rath Dinan?" Wow, what a moment, what a moment!
What a moment. Like, first of all, Gandalf has been waiting to put hands on Denethor. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. He's been waiting. He's like, yo, yeah, I got your ass now.
This is the equivalent of that movie scene where he just bonks Denethor on the head.
In a bit we skipped, we see that the same wind that brought hope to Merry and the others brings them very little hope as they dread what they're going to find.
You had moments like that, right? I mean, you're going somewhere, you know you've got bad news, you know it's going to be terrible, and you're dreading it. You got to get there in a hurry, but there's just zero hope. I mean, it's going to be bad, whatever happens. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It's a horrible feeling.
And Gandalf's line is very telling. The darkness may be receding, but it is still heavy here.
That's right. And it is precisely because of the despair of Denethor, which we've talked about earlier, the power of Sauron. Now, picking up with where we started reading, they get to the Citadel level and they find that there's nobody guarding the gate there. That's actually a good thing in Pippin's eyes, because it means that Beregond has left and hopefully he's off saving Faramir.
They arrive at the door to the silent street and they find a terrible scene. The porter is dead. His key is taken away and the door is open. Gandalf rightly calls this the work of Sauron. Now, some people may take that as, Beregond is doing the work of Sauron because he slayed him. But no, it's actually them following those terrible orders to burn Faramir, who's still alive.
It's the confusion that has been sown by Sauron and the split loyalties that are the problem, not that Beregond is doing the wrong thing. That's right.
Absolutely. So Gandalf dismisses Shadowfax, and they pass through the door and down the silent road as the daylight grows. That's right. The sound of cries and sword fighting are heard. These are sounds the text tells us haven't been heard in these places since Minas Tirith was built. That was more than 3,000 years ago since we've heard anything like this. That's pretty terrifying thought. Yeah, it's probably like when they were fighting off the wild men or orcs at that time. They captured that place, and it's so telling. Like it's been a hallowed place like
for 3 millennia. Yeah,
nothing like that has ever happened there. So it's epic and
unheard of.
They race to the house of the stewards.
Yeah, you bet.
Gandalf runs up the stairs crying out for the servants to stop what they're doing.
That's right. Stay this madness. They've got their swords drawn. They've got torches in their hands. Faramir would already be dead if it weren't for the fact that Beregond is defending this closed door, and he's already killed 2 of them. He didn't want to do that, just like he later on we'll find out he didn't want to have to kill the porter either. And the others are labeling him as a traitor. This is a sad scene, right? Beregond, in order to save Faramir, who he loves, has had to kill 3 men already. And let's talk about that for just a little bit, right? That's a high price.
It's a huge price. He loves his countrymen as well.
Yeah.
Like the people of Gondor they're literally trying to protect themselves and the people around them.
Yeah.
That's all they want. So though he loves Faramir, it comes at the cost of his fellow soldiers, his fellow people. He works with these people. They've got to have known each other their whole lives. Yeah.
I mean, these may not be Citadel guards, but they're Denethor's own sworn people. And as a Citadel guardsman himself, he would know them. Yeah.
He would absolutely know them.
He would have known the porter too, I'm sure.
It must pain him, but I think he makes the right choice here. And
he has no choice. He has to in order to save Faramir.
Absolutely. So Gandalf leaps into action, bounding up the stairs.
Yeah.
The remaining soldiers fall away and cover their faces because this is Gandalf the White coming up the stairs.
That's right. And he's coming in anger.
And we can think to that time way back in Hobbiton when he had to raise up on Bilbo. Yo, let me tell you something, my guy. Who you think you're talking to? He ain't playing. He has anger,
Yeah. You don't want to face off against this guy right now, right? No. But they can hear Denethor, can't they? So let's talk real briefly about Gandalf the White, right? It seems like he's always using light as a tool or a weapon, isn't it? I mean, I think back to his magic flashlight driving the Nazgul away, right? Or even as Gandalf the Grey using light in Moria, at least as a tool there. Yeah. But this place, a white light into a dark place is his appearance, is sort of the metaphor for his appearance. I think that has a lot to do with sort of the darkness of this place, not just physically, but spiritually. This is a dark, dark place.
So even though this is a hallowed tomb, right? Mm-hmm, the very presence of the tombs themselves are literally a callback to Numenor, where the kings were literally trying to find immortality. And that's what they would do. They would build statues and build graves greater than the actual city themselves. Yeah. So this is actually like a terrible place. Like it's not a good place.
You're absolutely right. I mean, this is a reminder of the Numenorian obsession with death, even though we're talking about, I mean, who founded Gondor, right? We're talking about the faithful. We're talking about the good guys in Numenor. Yeah. And yet there's still that baggage. There's still that tendency to do this. And of course, the House of the Stewards hasn't been around for that long. It's been around a little over 1,000 years since the House of the Stewards, were the ruling stewards at least. And so we maybe start to see that extending a little bit, maybe that same tendency to fall into that trap. Faramir talks about that, doesn't he? When he's talking to Frodo, he's talking about how, we got to the point where people looked up at their list of ancestors as being more important than the list of their children.
Absolutely.
And that's a turning point for any society, isn't it?
They get complacent, and Sauron plays on this.
Oh, he sure does.
He plays on this. He sends plagues. They lessen the watches on the wall. They just start building up the tomb and the Tower of Icthelion. And instead of, imagine what they would have done instead of building that, if they would have just expanded the Ramesek or or strengthened Osgiliath instead. Yeah. But these are the things when they, fall into disrepair.
Start to look inward instead of outward. Yeah,
exactly. And they're worried about, immortality and they're still worried about death. Yeah. So it's not a good place. And Gandalf brings light to this place. Like, I'm here in my full might to show I'm driving away the shadows. And absolutely. And the shadows is what Sauron uses and what the Witch King uses. A lot of people don't know this, but the 9 are strongest when they're gathered together under their fell chieftain at night.
At night. That is when they are the strongest, is at night. Absolutely.
That is when they're at strongest. And Sauron drives that cloud of, despair before the city. And so the sun's not out, but it comes out when the cock crows.
Yeah, and the wind shifts from the south, right?
Yeah. So Gandalf is kind of expanding that where he is. He's bringing light to there.
You're right. He's a literal light in a dark place. And, you talked about his power. Speaking of his power, right? He lifts up his hand, and as his hand is going up, Denethor's sword flies out of his hand. I mean, it's not even a reaction to it. It's as though he's literally drawing it out of his hand, and it falls behind him as Denethor steps back. Man, yes. Love that.
Man, it is absolutely amazing, man. It's a pretty powerful use of magic here on Gandalf's part.
Yeah.
I want to explore that, but we have a question in the bag on this exact issue, so we'll hold off for it for now.
We will. So that's when Gandalf begins his confrontation with Denethor. Right? He starts, by the way, I note this from a position of respect. He calls him my lord. He's still showing him the proper respect for both who he is and his position as steward. But then he makes 2 points. Right? The first point is, hey man, this is not a place for you to even be. This isn't a place for the living. This is where the dead are entombed.
And that's it's a fair point what you said. Like he's giving Denethor that respect, and it actually goes to show how much Sauron's stuff is at work, because Denethor is thinking Gandalf is here to oust him. He's thinking he's trying to overthrow. He's thinking all about this all wrong, but Gandalf is showing in his actions and his respect that, hey man, you're not supposed to be doing this.
Right.
So the second point is about the fighting.
Yeah.
We've got a war right now out in front. If you want to fight,
man,
you could go out there and fight. And he emphasizes that this is the rhetorical question about Sauron's forces having reached the place. Recall they never entered the city. Unlike in the film. In the film, they come and they encircle, the gates. They get up to like the 7th gate, in the city. But
that's when Gandalf's having that little chat with Pippin about death. Yeah, I mean, it's a great moment in the film. Don't get me wrong, but they never got in. So his question about has the foe even reached here? Well, of course not. They've not even gotten in the city. Yeah,
he's asking a rhetorical question has Sauron got here? Like even here?
Yeah, you have no excuse to be fighting. Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
So, it is. I want to do one quick thing before we get into your next reading, by the way. Hammond and Skull point us to the nomenclature, where Tolkien explains that the use of the word hallows here is simply, quote, a common speech translation of the Gondor name not given for the sacred places of the tombs. Now, I wanted to touch on that only because it's pretty rare for us to get words that have religious connotations like sacred or hallows, and soon, heathen, which we'll get to in a little bit. But you get the next reading, and so pick up exactly where I left off.
All right, let's do it. Since when has the Lord of Gondor been answerable to thee, said Denethor, or may I not command my own servants? You may, said Gandalf, but others may contest your will when it has turned to madness and evil. Where is your son, Faramir? He lies within, said Denethor, burning, already burning. They have set a fire in his flesh, but soon all shall be burned. The west has failed. It should all go up in a great fire, and all shall be ended. Ash and smoke blown away on the wind. Then Gandalf, seeing the madness that was on him, feared that he had already done some evil deed, and he thrust forward with Beregond and Pippin behind him, while Denethor gave back until he stood beside the table within. But there they found Faramir, still dreaming in his fever, lying upon the table. Wood was piled under it, and high all about it, and all was drenched with oil, even the garments of Faramir and the coverlets. But as yet no fire has been set to the fuel. Then Gandalf revealed the strength that lay hid in him. Even as the light of the power was hidden under the grey mantle, he leapt upon the faggots, and raising the sick man lightly, he sprang down and bore him towards the door. But as he did so, Faramir moaned and called on his father in his dream. Denethor started as one waking from a trance, and the flame died in his eyes, and he wept, and he said, "Do not take my son from me. He calls for me." "He calls," said Gandalf, "but you cannot come to him yet, for he must seek healing on the threshold of death, and maybe find it not, whereas your part is to go out to the battle of your city, where maybe death awaits you. This you know in your heart." "He will not wake again," said Denethor. "Battle is vain. Why should we wish to live longer? Why should we not go to death side by side?"
Oh, man. All right. Going to be a really tough ethical question here, isn't it? We'll get to that, though. We'll go back to the beginning of the passage you read, right? We start off with Denethor's response to Gandalf's confrontation. It reveals a tone. We talked about Gandalf respecting Denethor by starting off with my lord and certainly acknowledging his position as steward. Denethor's response also reveals a tone, his use of the word thee. Now, this is a little little detail, right? Dawn and I talked about this at length way back in The Passing of the Grey Company. Back when Arwen sent a message to Aragorn, her message included what we think of now as a more formal version of you. She says, I send thee what I have made for thee.
You talked about how this is actually more intimate version.
Yeah.
The familiar second person pronoun to the other languages, French and German, have that English has lost.
That's right.
So when it's more intimate, he's saying thee, like somebody I know, somebody that's known here.
Right. Now, this came up again with Éowyn as she transitioned to the familiar or intimate version with Aragorn, right? Remember, she says at the end, they would not be parted from thee because they love thee. But Aragorn kept her at arm's length with you. It was when you knew this, it hurt. Like you were hurting for Éowyn because she's like professing her love for him in the use of her second person pronoun. And Aragorn's like, hello, my friend.
That's a hell of a, insight right there. That's that's vast understanding of the text. You mentioned it again with Sean when the Witch King spoke to Éowyn with the same second person pronoun and pointed out there, it is meant to imply that Éowyn was his inferior. As a lord could refer to his servant with the familiar, but the reverse was certainly not the case.
Exactly. And that's what we've got here. Hammond and Skull point us to a line in the Peoples of Middle-earth, that's the 12th volume of the History of Middle-earth, where Tolkien wrote a note related to his work on Appendix F. Tolkien writes, where thou, thee, thy appears, it is used mainly to mark a use of the familiar form where that was not usual. For instance, its use by Denethor in his last madness to Gandalf, and by the messenger of Sauron, was in both cases intended to be contemptuous. But elsewhere, it is occasionally used to indicate a deliberate change to a form of affection or endearment. So when it was Éowyn's endearment towards Aragorn, it's one thing. Here, it's certainly not endearment at all. It is, you are my inferior. It is contemptuous. It is intended to show disdain. And I am the boss. You cannot refer to me as thee. You have to say you because you're below me in stature and in position. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what Denethor is doing. Like Denethor's point is that he doesn't answer to Gandalf. Like, don't I command my own servants?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And
They're my servants, man.
Gandalf doesn't even deny. He doesn't deny his authority. He just points out that others may oppose it when it's returned to evil. As Beregond has done. Beregond has made that decision. You know what? This is craziness. So it's checks and balances in this thing here.
There's a point where we can't go with orders, right? I mean, this is in the primary world too. We know that there are orders, and there's one thing for soldiers to follow orders, but there are certain things that if a soldier follows those orders, he's still responsible for. We know what an immoral order is. We know what an illegal order is, and that's what's going on here. It's an immoral or evil order. That's when Gandalf asks about Faramir. Where is your son? Denethor tells him he's inside already burning. But it isn't just Faramir that's burning. It's the West, right? From Denethor's perspective, this is cataclysmic. This is the apocalypse. The efforts of the West to talk about Numenor over the last 3,000 years. These 3,000 years of efforts have failed. Everything is going to end. Wow.
Yeah, man. Sauron has really done a number.
Yeah, he has.
On Jonathan. And I think it was a brilliant stroke. So yeah. I talked about this in a TikTok today, actually. It's really interesting. Yeah. I was pointing out that, Denethor is no chump. He's actually very strong-willed. Him and Gandalf's wills strive against each other constantly throughout this whole book.
Oh, yeah. Those confrontations in the first chapter of this book, and Pippin notices that as their eyes are battling. Yeah. Oh,
Pippin's like, this guy is no walk in the park.
No.
And Sauron knows this. He's able to wrest the view of the Palantir from Sauron. Sauron can't just, take him control over Denethor. So him being that strong is awesome. But
it is.
Sauron is so smart and so manipulative. He's like, okay, if I can't do that, if I can't beat you this way, I'll beat you that way. Yeah. And he just shows him Minas Tirith burning, the attack, the black ships coming. He just shows him all that's against him, and it just pours onto despair. Like he just pouring onto despair like fuel to the fire. And then, he just cracks under the pressure. Like Boromir dies, then Faramir is almost dead. It's too much, and he cracks, and it's over for him.
And he cracks in large part because of his use of the Palantir, which we'll get to next week. But what we notice here is his absolute certainty. There's not, the West is about to burn, or the West is about to fail. The West has failed. It is past tense. It is done and dusted. It is over. This is a certainty. And it brings me back to this concept of, okay, back at the beginning of the show, we talked about hope and despair as though one was the opposite of the other. And certainly they're not the same, but really you can have no hope without going to despair. In other words, if hope is plus 10 on the scale, despair isn't 0. Despair is minus 10. There is a 0 on the scale where you don't have hope, but you haven't sunk to despair. And here, Denethor has sunk into full and complete despair. It's not that he's given up a hope. It's that he has a certainty. It's a wrong certainty, as we'll find out. He is absolutely certain that only the negative outcome can happen.
Sauron's going to win. He's going to come. It's over.
It's past tense. It's so telling that he uses it this way. Yeah.
So and Gandalf isn't waiting for more of this nonsense. He's like,
not.
All right, I'm out of here. This is enough of this. Yeah. And the bit is, about his servants have set a fire into Faramir's flesh, prompts him to get a move on. You know what I'm saying?
He does. Yeah.
So he does. And Beregond and Pippin follow him. He inspires, and that's what he does. And they go with him with no problem. Yeah. Fortunately, they find that Faramir is still alive. Yeah, albeit barely. He's on a table, oil-drenched, wood around him, and even his clothes and his sheets, which isn't good.
Don't let him match, man. Don't. But
Gandalf is about to be unveiled. Another moment where Gandalf the White is uncloaked is about to happen. And this one is interesting.
It is, isn't it? I mean, there's an analogy here between his physical strength and his magical power in that they were both hidden. And I really like this because, he's old, right? I mean, they show up even in Third Age 1000 when they first arrive. The Istari come in the guise of old men. Mm-hmm. So I've never really imagined him having the sort of physical prowess to leap up onto this table, onto the pile of wood, lift up a grown man who's got to weigh close to 200 pounds, right? Almost pushing 100 kilograms for sure, jumps back down and carries him towards the door. Dude, this guy's ripped. I mean, he's big. He's carrying a 200-pound man.
Captain of Gondor. He's no little guy.
No, he's no little guy. And he's soaked in oil. And he's carrying him but he's an old man.
Yeah.
But he's not, right? He's not. Yeah.
So let's discuss the nature of Gandalf's powers there and his abilities and how they're enhanced by how they're hidden and how they manifest and show when he has glimpses of that power, that Istari power that he could show.
Yeah, they definitely enhanced. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Let's go to letter number 156. So Gandalf sacrificed himself, was accepted and enhanced and returned. Of course, he remains similar in personality and idiosyncrasies, but both his wisdom and power are much greater. When he speaks, he commands attention. The old Gandalf could not have dealt so with Theoden nor with Saruman. He was very more drawn back, and
that's right.
He let them talk and he let them, be their very much commanding selves. But when he comes back, he's like, I don't have time for this. So he's still under the obligation.
Going back to Tolkien's words, right? He's still under the obligation.
He doesn't have time. Yeah. He knows he's that guy. So he's still under the obligation of concealing his power and of teaching rather than forcing or dominating wills. Mm-hmm. But where the physical powers of the enemy are too great for the good will of the opposers to be effective, he can act in emergency as an angel.
Yeah.
No more violently than the release of St. Peter from prison. He seldom does so, operating rather through others. But in 1 or 2 cases in the war, in Volume 3, he does reveal a sudden power. He twice rescues Faramir.
That's right. And we've read that passage before, but it's a really important passage here because we're talking about the powers, literally the physical powers of the enemy in this case. He can act in emergency as this angel. Now, we'd referenced this back when he saved Faramir the first time using his magic flashlight to drive the Nazgul away. At the time, by the way, so this is a mea culpa, my bad here, I mixed up Tolkien's reference of Peter's release from prison with the release of Paul from prison. So Paul was the one who got out of prison after an earthquake. I'd referenced that incorrectly. Peter's escape was both less violent and more directly involved an angel. This is an interesting one because it does sort of parallel this. Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers bound in chains. This angel shows up. There's a light in the cell. The angel wakes him up, tells him to get up, and boom, the chains are gone. Gets dressed, follows the angel out of town, and that's when he finally realizes this wasn't a vision, it was real. Anyway, all that to say, oops, I mixed up the Peter and Paul thing. My apologies. But that's how violent, quote unquote, Gandalf is allowed to be, which is to say not very much. And that Tolkien explains Gandalf can act no more violently than did that angel, which is why he can't skewer Denethor or pin him to the wall, but he can take away his sword and rescue Faramir from the oil-soaked wood, which is exactly what he does.
As Gandalf carries the feverish Faramir away from the table, Faramir calls out to his father.
Yeah.
This gets Denethor attention immediately.
Mm.
We read that the flame died in his eyes, so now like the madness, I feel like his voice brings him back. Like, oh, wait, like what?
Yeah.
I read this as the anger, the madness, the fury. Like that's
it's all
it's
died,
gone. Yeah, it's like it brought hope back. Like, oh, what? Like So what do you think of it?
I like that. I like the idea that it brought hope back. That combined with his weeping here. I think we made a lot of points over the years about Denethor's total ineligibility for Father of the Year award, but this moment really suggests that he does have somewhere deep inside, buried under his pride and now his despair, a really strong love for Faramir. He doesn't hate Faramir. He loves him. And it's his love for him that's one of the contributions to his despair, right? He thinks his son is dying. He's already lost one son. He's about to lose another. That's one of those elements, one of those things that Sauron is using to drive that despair deeper. But yeah, this moment when Faramir calls out for him, I think you're right. It begins maybe to restore a tiny bit of hope. The problem is, I think he's already gone too far.
Yeah, he's already gone too far. And Denethor is that typical father that wants his son to be one way, but he's not. And he acts like he doesn't love him. He treats him like crap. But
yeah, he does.
He loves Faramir. And you can tell in this moment, like he's like, oh my God, my son is alive. Like it definitely added to his despair. So Denethor tells Gandalf to stop. Faramir is calling me.
Right.
But Gandalf, he makes it clear. He may be calling you, but you can't answer.
Exactly. He needs healing right away. Either healing or he's going to die. He might not even get that.
And he's telling him like, you still have a job to do. Like go where the battle is. You are the steward of the city.
Seriously. Like, you're the one who's responsible.
The one who are responsible. Exactly. And he's neglected that duty, to give into despair. And Gandalf is over it.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. This next line of Gandalf's is great. This you know in your heart. It is one final appeal to Denethor's sense of duty, to his conscience. I absolutely love it. He's absolutely right. Somewhere deep down inside, Denethor absolutely knows his obligation is to go down and fight in that battle, even if it means dying. But he is so far buried in that despair, he is not fazed by this at all. In fact, he ignores it, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he just full on ignores Gandalf's point.
He just sinks back into the despair, and instead he moves on to the inevitable death of Faramir and the pointless battle. And since we're both going to die, he asks, why shouldn't we be allowed to die together?
Yeah. Now, this is based, though, again, we talked before about, the West has failed, right? Past tense, absolute certainty. This is also based on what he perceives to be a pair of certainties, right? One, that Faramir absolutely is going to die, and that Gondor is absolutely going to lose.
Yeah, so it's the certainty parts that's the problem. Like Faramir absolutely will die, and that Gondor absolutely will lose. Like those are the problems. And, as Gandalf has said already at the Council of Elrond, he quotes, he says, "Despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt."
And that's what Denethor is right now. He thinks he's wrong, but he thinks he sees the end beyond all doubt. But that sort of brings us back around to we really ought never to despair, because can any mortal see the end beyond all doubt?
And Gandalf, this is something Gandalf even tells Frodo, even the wise cannot see all ends.
That's right. Wise cannot see all ends. We as mortal beings, we don't have privy, we don't have access to the music and can see what fate is going to bring. We don't know what the history of the world is in advance. So arguably the very existence of a eucatastrophe that we've just seen with Aragorn's arrival, for instance, kind of disproves the ability of any mortal to see the end beyond all doubt. Anything can happen at any point, and therefore one should never despair.
Yeah. And with that being said, this is going to be the last reading of the day. So, Alan, why don't you take it away?
Authority is not given to you, steward of Gondor, to order the hour of your death, answered Gandalf. And only the heathen kings, under the domination of the dark power, did thus, slaying themselves in pride and despair, murdering their kin to ease their own death. Then, passing through the door, he took Faramir from the deadly house and laid him on the bier on which he had been brought, and which had now been set in the porch. Denethor followed him and stood trembling, looking with longing on the face of his son, and for a moment while all were silent and still, watching the Lord in his throes, he wavered. "Come," said Gandalf. "We are needed. There is much that you can yet do." Then, suddenly, Denethor laughed. He stood up tall and proud again, and stepping swiftly back to the table, he lifted from it the pillow on which his head had lain. Then, coming to the doorway, he drew aside the covering, and lo, he had between his hands a palantir. And as he held it up, it seemed to those that looked on that the globe began to glow with an inner flame, so that the lean face of the Lord was lit as with a red fire, and it seemed cut out of hard stone, sharp with black shadows, noble, proud, and terrible. His eyes glittered. "Pride and despair?" he cried. "Didst thou think that the eyes of the White Tower were blind? Nay, I have seen more than thou knowest, grey fool, for thy hope is but ignorance. Go then and labour in healing. Go forth and fight. Vanity. For a little space you may triumph on the field, for a day. But against the power that now arises, there is no victory. To this city only the first finger of its hand has yet been stretched. All the east is moving, and even now the wind of thy hope cheats thee and wafts up Anduin a fleet with black sails. The west has failed. It is time for all to depart who would not be slaves."
Man. Woo.
Oh, man.
Woo. It's so crazy because he's technically not lying.
No.
He's telling what he believes to be true in a sense of what he's seen. So as we see in the movies and the films, the black sails coming up, and even the men despair, and the orcs take like great, like they get reinvigorated. They're like, we got more forces. But lo and behold, it ends up being Aragorn. So you got to be very careful with despair and what you think you know.
Yeah.
It may turn out differently.
Certainty is almost never certain, huh?
So in that powerful reading that you just did, we start with the line that, from Gandalf, that the steward does not have the authority to determine when he is to die.
Now, interestingly, in the first edition of the text, the version that people would have read for the first 10 years, Tolkien actually has Gandalf say, "Authority is not given to you nor to any other lord to order the hour of your death."
Yeah, that wasn't changed until 1965. And while we couldn't find anything in the history of Middle-earth to shed light on the change, Hammond and Skull speculate that Tolkien made the change because in the tale of Aragorn and Arwen, Aragorn, as a descendant of the kings of Numenor, did choose the hour of his death, though he did not slay himself, but fell asleep.
I really think we should grapple with this for a little bit, even if we may not reach a satisfactory answer. I'm not sure there is a satisfactory answer. In her essay, War, Death, and Fairy Stories in the work of J.R.R. Tolkien, and that was published in There Would Always Be a Fairy Tale, Dr. Verlyn Flieger writes this: "Considered side by side, the two deaths of Denethor and Aragorn raise some troubling questions. Both Denethor and Aragorn die of their own volition, taking their deaths into their own hands. Both are, at the time, in good health, so that natural death is not imminent, and both deaths will be used to forestall future consequences. What exactly, we may ask, is the difference between the grace given to Aragorn and the authority withheld from Denethor?"
Dr. Flieger doesn't give us an answer in her essay. I don't suggest we can come up with an answer where she did not.
I think you're right about that.
We should at least wrestle with it a little.
I think so.
So what is the difference between these two deaths? If I can give, my thought process.
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Yeah.
So when you read the Silmarillion, one of the Numenorian kings, his name escapes me now, but he chooses to not go. Yeah. When it's his time to go.
Yeah, he becomes like witless and unmanned, right? I think is the line.
He doesn't give up the kingship to his son, who usually it would have passed to him long ago, and he wrestles with death, and he doesn't go when he's supposed to go. So I think what's happening here is that Aragorn is just choosing, I'm choosing to go at this time because I know it's my time to go. And I think that that's where the misconception of him choosing his death as in some kind of suicide is coming along. So it's not the same to me, but I understand if somebody else interprets it differently.
Yeah, I think that's fair. By the way, the king you're thinking about was Autonomir, and I'm actually going to read that line just because I want readers or listeners, I should say, to know what you're talking about. This is from Akalabeth. Autonomir lived to a great age, clinging to his life beyond the end of all joy, and he was the first of the Númenóreans to do this, refusing to depart until he was witless and unmanned, and denying to his son the kingship at the height of his days. Like you said, the tradition had been that the kings would step down and hand off the scepter to their sons when their sons were sort of in their prime, right? Instead of waiting until their sons were significantly older. And then, after they gave up the kingship, they would eventually lay themselves down and give back the gift, right? As Aragorn says and uses that phrase in the appendices. That's a tough one. I mean, I think part of me wants to think in terms of the words that Flieger gives us: grace to Aragorn, authority held back from Denethor. Aragorn, therefore, has that authority inherent, so he doesn't necessarily need to be granted that authority. He's already got that because he's a rightful king. That's one thing.
Yeah, I think that Aragorn is in the line of him, having that authority from him being in the actual line of
the kings.
Elros. He's from the line of the kings, whereas the stewards are, they're Númenóreans.
They're Númenórean, and Denethor we know is pretty full-blooded Númenórean, right? I mean, I think Gandalf even says the Númenórean blood runs true in him.
He's not of that ruling
He's not
line.
of that line, so he may not have that power.
So he doesn't have that authority to do that, and
right.
It's kind of a responsibility of Aragorn to, hey, not let this happen again. We know, learn from the mistakes of the kings of old, and not to be witless. My son is coming of age, and I'm going to let myself go in a proper manner, and not to hold on to life because death is important, and that is like learning the lesson that Númenor did not.
And yet, Dr. Flieger does make the point. He still chooses to die, just like Denethor is choosing to die. And trying to distinguish between these two it's hard to wrestle with, right? I mean, I think though it's more a matter of duty. Like I was
going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, Aragorn, at the time Aragorn decides to lay down his life, he's given the scepter to his son, and he is now free. Denethor currently is the steward. He has an active, current, right now duty to protect his people. I wonder, and I know we've said, well, Denethor might not have the authority at all because he's not of the line of kings, but let's assume that he has the authority because maybe all Númenóreans do, or maybe it's gone to the stewards in place of the kings, whatever. He wouldn't have that authority until after this battle was done.
Exactly.
If they were victorious, they drove off Sauron, and Denethor wanted to die then, he could lay himself down and die.
He literally is giving up on his people, which is a king should never. He's just literally abandoning his post as he's literally being a hypocrite. Like how he's, mad at Beregond and calling him a
exactly.
rebel.
Slay me this renegade. Wait a minute. Who's the renegade here?
You've gone rogue here, my guy.
Yeah,
you're just like, forget everybody. Forget all these people fighting for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You haven't even talked to Imrahil. You haven't even bequeathed him any powers or anything. You're just like, whatever, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Somebody,
we're gonna
follow
lose
the Grey Wizard if you want. Follow anybody you want. I don't care anymore, is basically what he said a couple chapters ago. Yeah.
He's taking his Palantir and he's going home. It's ridiculous.
He's taking his ball and going home. I love it. You're absolutely right. Maybe one other distinction would be the matter of how Aragorn and Denethor end their lives here. I mean, lying down and giving up, to me, implies that there's somebody else, right? He's surrendering his life. There implies that there is another party to this transaction, right? That Eru is accepting his spirit that he's offering up. That actively burning oneself to death, let alone committing murder of your son at the same time, is a very unilateral action and certainly doesn't imply the existence of any other party to this transaction, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, he's not giving anyone a chance to receive his death. Like he's just snatching away everything, ceremony, everything. He's
making this selfish. He's making them about himself.
Yeah, he's just being a spoiled child in despair.
Yeah,
type of if I can't win, then everybody loses type of thing. Like just forget everything.
That's
forget
a very
tradition.
good point.
Forget it's kind of ridiculous.
like the way, but you're absolutely right. It is.
In
ridiculous.
layman's terms, it's just ridiculous. If we're talking frankly, it's like really selfish and cowardly. It's like a coward's way out. Where Aragorn's not being a coward. He did everything. He protected the realm. He added to the realm. He did the job. He has a son.
To add more to that, if it wasn't Aragorn's time, he could lay down all he wants. He ain't going to die. Right? I mean, that's the point. He knows when that time has come. The kings of Numenor knew, okay, now's the time. I'm starting to get old now. I'm starting, this is the time. I've handed off the kingship. Now I'm going to lay myself down. Now, if he was wrong, he would have laid down there for a long nap, woke up and goes, well, I guess it's not time after all.
Yeah. He forced his death. He forced his death.
He's forcing it.
So he's forcing
That's an excellent way of putting it.
That's what Denethor thought. He forces his death, you know what I'm saying, on some Turin Tarumbar He's laying down on the sword.
Yeah.
And you already know how we feel about him.
Yeah, I mean, I love Turin. Poor guy. I mean, but yeah, he still made some very, very poor, prideful decisions, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure there's really a perfectly acceptable, or certainly not a universally acceptable answer here. I think, a lot of our listeners are going to disagree with some of these points. But I do like the way Dr. Flieger wrapped this up. And again, this does not give us an answer. It just gives us more questions. She says, each death raises some difficult questions about the other. I suspect that when it came to it, Tolkien found his own invention, and she's talking there about this idea of death as a gift to men. Tolkien found his own invention more complex than he imagined. It is not just death versus deathlessness. It is also one person's death versus another person's death, and one kind of death versus another kind.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Man, she has a way of, in like a couple of sentences, of saying things that might take me an hour and a half to point out.
like we were saying, like it's how you die. It's just as much about you dying. Yeah. It's how you die. Like you can go, like if I can harken back to the Battle of the Pelennor Fields when Theoden dies. It's not his choice to die, but when he dies, he's like accepting of it because he did what he wanted to do.
He accomplished his mission.
I accomplished this. So I'm at peace, at least, even though I didn't cause my own death like Aragorn, and I'm not saying that, but I accomplished what I want. I'm okay with this. He's not fighting with it. He's not frustrated. He's not like, damn, I didn't. He's like, yo, I did that. I killed the black snake. Like I killed the black serpent. So it very much feels very satisfying in a certain sense. You're at ease when he passes. It's sad, but you're like, but he did do that. He did do that thing. So if we go back to the text, we get a second reference to the heathen kings.
Yes, we do.
This is very interesting because Gandalf wasn't there when Denethor referenced it the first time. So, the heathen kings in the Siege of Gondor, like now it's like they're talking about it so much.
Why is Gandalf mentioning the heathen kings? Well, it's been mentioned before.
There's something there. There's a very important point to be made.
Yeah. Now, Matt and I talked about that back in episode 283, and we pointed out that heathen only appears these 2 times in all of Tolkien's published works. It does show up in a draft talking about the heathen fane in Harrowdale, and it also shows up once in the Notion Club papers. Now, in the postscript episode 283, so those of you who are not part of the Fellowship of the Podcast have not gotten to hear this. It's one of the reasons why you should do that. So in that postscript, we talked about a blog, actually. A friend of the podcast, Tom Hillman, whose book actually coming out pretty soon. His blog, Alas Not Me, he pointed out how the fact that Gandalf and Denethor both use this phrase, the heathen kings, it indicates that this word and the act which Denethor has in mind, right, self-immolation, share a meaningful context. Yeah,
it's like, so while it's a pretty deep cut going into the Notion Club papers, we read a very early version of the Akallabeth.
Yeah.
And about Sauron's deception of the Númenóreans. And they built a great temple in the midst of the town of Armenelath, as we know as Armenelos.
Right.
On the high hill, which before was undefiled, but now became a heathen fane. And they there sacrificed unspeakable offerings on an unholy altar.
Oh, man. Great stuff. So Shippey has something else to say about heathen kings in The Road to Middle-earth. He points out the word heathen is normally used by Christians to describe others, particularly uncivilized pagans. And he points out that in Tolkien's lecture on Beowulf, this is, of course, the one that we get in Beowulf, the Monsters and the Critics, Tolkien had remarked on the one place where the Beowulf poet used this word of men, thinking it a mistake or an interpolation. By the 1950s, Shippey argues, Tolkien may have changed his mind. accepting stronger Christian elements in Beowulf, Malden, and his own fiction. I have to say, given the placement of the word, which is in the context of a discussion of suicide, which the Catholic Church of Tolkien's day held to be a mortal sin, I wouldn't be surprised to find Shippey's thought here to be correct.
If we take a look at what happens in the Akallabeth, especially towards the end, they start worshiping Melkor, but we know there is, in Tolkien's Legendarium, there is only one. There is only one true
Eru Ilúvatar.
Ilúvatar. And this is who the elves worship. But there's such disdain for the elves, and then Sauron's corruption, and they're like, the jealousy there, and then like, they don't technically know the name Melkor.
No.
They don't know what that name means. We got to remember, they only called him Morgoth after a point. So the Númenóreans would have no clue who Melkor is. They just know what Sauron told them. So they
the Lord
start
of Darkness is the one who can, help you.
He can do this.
And really, he's the only one there. Remember, Sauron lies to them so much, he's got them believing that Eru is just a fiction, that Eru is a name invented by the Valar to basically say, oh, we can't do it because of Eru. Yeah. There is no Eru. There's only one God, and it's Melkor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's twisted stuff. Yeah.
It's crazy. And what people need to understand, and which I think they do, I mean, it doesn't matter if they're doing it on purpose or not. It's heathen because it's wrong if you look at the actual facts of the Legendarium. Eru is definitely the one.
Yeah. And the Númenóreans knew that. I mean, they used to worship Eru on the top of the Meneltarma once a year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, it's part of their history. They know better.
Yeah, if you read, Farazon literally is like, he kind of almost reneges. He's
he knows, man. He knows in the heart of hearts. He knows what he's about to do is wrong. Yeah.
He's letting his people run around and burn, each other, and they actually start fighting, and sickness happens, and this is all hedonism, and that's why the word is being used there, and it harkens back to the Bible and its use of it. And I think it's a very cool parallel there. So
it really is. It is interesting. Yeah. I mean, heathen, like you said, in Tolkien's works, I mean, certainly outside of the Silmarillion, we don't get a lot of religious references. And that's very intentional, right? I mean, Tolkien made it very clear in his letters that that's quite on purpose. The closest we get is Faramir, basically looking to the west before they have a meal. That's it. That's the closest we get to any sort of religious action in the Lord of the Rings. And yet, so why mention heathen? But clearly, heathen is to bring back this idea of turning away from the one true God, Eru, and worshiping Melkor, right?
Absolutely.
This is not just not good. This is bad.
Super bad.
Yeah, right. It's not just a failure to do the right thing. It's an embracing
of the evil. So, and Gandalf does more than simply reference the same heathen kings that Denethor mentioned earlier. Yeah. He lays out specifically that they once did what Denethor was doing, killing himself in pride and despair, while also killing members of their own family. Like,
seriously,
the Kingsmen are related to the royal line. They literally come from the royal line, and the kings would have them burned at the stake. The Kingsmen would have the faithful burned, and when they couldn't get any slaves, they would sacrifice the faithful. So this is exactly what they did. And it was awful.
Well, and if you ever, and this is a deep cut, we mentioned this actually in a P5 to the last episode, and so I'm not going to get into it full bore, but the story of Tal Elmar, which is at the end of the Peoples of Middle Earth. Yeah. There's a hint that there was more than just human sacrifice involved. The natives of Middle Earth who were being captured and taken back actually believed that they would be eaten, that there was cannibalism being practiced by the king's men. That's as dark as it gets, man.
It doesn't get any darker than that.
It does not get any darker than that. So terrifying stuff. Yeah. So Gandalf exits the House of the Stewards, wisely bringing Faramir with him and puts him on the stretcher. Yeah.
Denethor follows, and we get a moment which he nearly turns back, just like I was saying. Yeah. Like, he kind of like and he nearly repents. We see the struggle in his mind.
Yeah, that's what Innes throws. Yeah. Well, like you said, right? I mean, our Farazon had a chance, and he almost repented. We've talked about this before for years on this show. Since the very beginning, every character who makes a bad decision is given a chance to turn back, from Boromir to Smeagol, from Denethor to Saruman, from Ar-Pharazôn to Feanor, even Sauron himself at the end of the War of Wrath. Everybody gets a chance to turn it around, right? And Gandalf notices this hesitation, and he wants Denethor to turn it around. So he counsels Denethor gently, quietly, come. There's still a lot you can accomplish.
But that's it for the steward. His moment has passed as he laughs, stands up, and goes back to the table to get something for a little show and tell.
Yeah, that's right.
He holds up the palantir, and the inner flame lights his face, giving him a terrifying countenance.
Oh, yeah. And that's when he throws Gandalf's words back at him from the beginning of the confrontation, pride and despair, before launching into a tirade that once again is based on his own inaccurate certainty.
Yeah, so, Gandalf's hope is nothing more than ignorance. You know, to him. He's just like, man, you're being a fool. Like he calls him old fool and stuff like that. Very much like the Witch King does.
The Witch King called him that. Exactly. Yeah. So here he's a gray fool. There he was an old fool. Yeah.
So go ahead and try to heal Faramir. Go fight on the battlefield. It won't matter at all. I've seen the forces arrayed against you. You cannot possibly defeat Sauron.
Right. I have seen it. You cannot do this. And he even says, look, this wind that you think is bringing you hope, guess what? It's bringing up a fleet with black sails. It is all over, man. It is all over. And this shows something very important, that despite having a palantir, Denethor does not know that it is Aragorn and men from the southern fiefdoms of Gondor that are in that fleet.
Absolutely. He can't see all. It's not like a full-fledged...
Or he doesn't have the power to direct the vision that tightly. Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So that's actually a change from an earlier draft in which Denethor knew that Aragorn was on his way.
That's right. And it's an important change because, as we'll find out at the end of the chapter, Gandalf points out that Denethor only saw in the palantir what Sauron allowed him to see, which makes sense, right? So now he's going to see the fleet of black sails, but he's not going to be allowed to see that it's Aragorn on it.
Absolutely. And that is where the despair really sinks in. He's like, oh man, so we'll talk much more about Denethor's use of the palantir in the next episode.
We will. But one quick observation before then, note that Denethor does not say that Sauron has captured the ring, right? He does say your hope is nothing more than ignorance. This strongly suggests that what we argued in the Siege of Gondor was right. When Denethor said the fool's hope has failed, the enemy has found it, and now his power waxes, that was purely supposition. He knew only that Sauron had overwhelming forces. He did not know of Frodo's capture. He could not know of Frodo's capture because Sauron did not yet know of Frodo's capture, and Denethor saw only those things that Sauron permitted. How could Sauron permit him to see something that he himself did not know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So finally, after reiterating for the second time, just in this conversation, and the third time overall, that the West has failed, Denethor argues that it's time for everyone to depart, i.e. commit suicide, which is terrible. We unalive themselves if they don't want to be slaves.
I think it's an extreme stance. I mean, what about going and just dying in battle instead of taking your own life? Why is that a departure that Denethor isn't considering? I don't know. But I think it comes back to that West has failed. 3 times he has said the West has failed. Past tense, it is over. And he is 100% certain, as certain as you and I are, that the sun is going to set in the West tonight. He is that certain that Gondor has failed, that the West has failed, and it's over. Man, sad things. Now, that fleet with black sails, you know who's on them? It is not just Aragorn. There is an innkeeper on one of those ships with a big bag of mail as well, though how he got there, I have no idea. KnewBetta, what does Bartleman have in the mailbag for us tonight?
Chris W. writes in with a 2-parter.
Okay.
In the chapter, the Pyre of Denethor, we see Gandalf using some pretty high power magic. Gandalf lifted up his hand, and in the very stroke, the sword of Denethor flew up and left his grasp and fell behind him. And Denethor stepped backward before Gandalf as one amazed. Arguably, this is the most aggressive use of magic that we see Gandalf use in The Lord of the Rings. I don't count the burning pine cones of the hobbits here.
That's fair.
And I can't help but to wonder why here. Why is it at this moment, not in his standoffs against the Balrog or the Witch King, but here, that Gandalf reveals himself so strongly? And if he is allowed to do this, why doesn't he literally stop Denethor from taking his own life just moments later?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a loaded question.
That's a really loaded question. I do have to maybe take issue with the argument that this is the most aggressive use of his magical abilities, but I think for us to do that, we'll have to kind of catalog them all. So that's what I've done here. And here's what we've got just from The Lord of the Rings, since for the sake of this question, we will also not count the burning pine cones from The Hobbit.
So I definitely agree with what you said. I don't think that's Gandalf's most aggressive use of magic, because if we remember in the Forest of Fangorn, he literally does the same thing to Aragorn himself. He actually heats Aragorn's sword and makes it and makes him drop it. He destroys the arrow that Legolas lets loose.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So also
sends Gimli's axe right out of his hand.
Sends his axe right out of his hand. Also, a thought process as opposed to definitely knowing, but. Being that Aragorn says that, you know, he can do much more than what we can see him do.
Aragorn knows. He must have seen something.
There are tales of his that we can't know about.
And that makes sense, because some of the most aggressive uses of magic that Gandalf has engaged in are quote unquote off stage, right? I mean,
off-stage,
I'm thinking about obviously his whole fight with the Balrog.
Exactly my point. That's what I was going to bring.
Fire and lightning could be seen from miles away. Okay, none of us saw it. It happened off stage, but it obviously had a lot of magic, right?
Yeah. He's definitely using it.
There's a lot of mundane ones, everything from the fireworks with the dragon, the horses in Elrond's flood. But, he also fought with the Nazgul on the top of Weathertop with the fire there. And again, we don't see that. It's only after the fact that we see the effects of the fire. I would imagine it was pretty aggressive to fight off 5 Nazgul.
Exactly.
And like you said, the stuff that happens in Fangorn with Aragorn's sword, Legolas's arrow, and Gimli's axe. So, there's quite a bit of stuff there. I'm going to say then and I think you'll agree with me, this isn't the most aggressive use of his magic. His fights with the Nazgul and Amon-Sul and with the Balrog would have been more aggressive. Some of his other uses would have been for effect, right? The firework, the horses, even the blessing of Butterbur's beer, which is great. But it's the second question that's most important, isn't it? Right? I mean, if he's allowed to reveal himself like this, and we've talked about that a number of times, why doesn't he use his magic to stop Denethor from taking his own life? What do you think?
I don't think he's really allowed to definitely reveal himself like that. That moment is like all or nothing. In that second where he's like, all right, I got to save Faramir. I got to show him real quick. I'm not going to go out of control and kill Denethor, but I can show him like, yo. Like,
exactly.
Like with Bilbo.
He can act no more violently than the angel, right?
Exactly.
We talked about that. Yeah.
Exactly. So if we go back to what we said in the
letter 156. Yeah.
He didn't throw Denethor down or pin him up against the wall. He just made the thing fly out of his hand, and he showed them like, hey, I'm not to be trifled with. Like,
and because Bilbo, he was about to kill Beregond, right?
Exactly.
I mean, he's coming up behind Beregond. Beregond is he's on the porch of the steps there, and he's facing off against the remaining guards. So his back is to Denethor and to the door. Denethor opens the door. He's about to run Beregond through, right? Slay me, this renegade, or do I have to do it myself? Gandalf knows right now or Beregond dies. And so he disarms him. But yeah, I think, like you said, he's not allowed to do that, right? Let's go back to 156. We read this not that long ago. He's under the obligation of teaching rather than forcing or dominating wills. So he can rescue Faramir, but he can't force Denethor to stop. Denethor doesn't want to be rescued, right? He would have to impose his will on Denethor. He's not imposing his will on Faramir.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you can even go back to when he's trying to talk Bilbo into giving up the ring.
He can't force him. He break his mind. He cannot force him to do that. Even if we go to, after they come down from the mountain and they're about to go to the Moria, they get attacked by wolves, and everybody else is slaying the wolves. Gandalf throws up a log and makes it burst into flame, and it comes down. And that's more, I think, to show his power. Like, go get out of here. Like, you know what I mean? But he doesn't. He's not like setting the wolves on fire like with his magic. He set pine cones on fire and threw them down physically in The Hobbit. And he's just displaying, hey, I got this power. He doesn't use it to kill the wolves. So I think that's very telling of what he can and cannot do in his uses and things like that.
That's a fair point. We could also mention Theoden too, right? I mean, Theoden listens. Denethor doesn't. Theoden listens and of his own free will steps out of that despair. Gandalf doesn't force him to. Yeah. Theoden does it willingly. Denethor's despair, though, is complete, and he refuses to listen to Gandalf.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah. Well, actually, no. But with you as co-host, I'm not going to pass up this opportunity. I'm going to dig deep into the bag. I wanted to find an unanswered question from our very first season of the podcast on the Silmarillion, since you're known to be a bit of a first age expert. So Jimmy W., who might not even listen to the show anymore because this question's got to be at least 5 years old, asked this question about Morgoth. He says, Hurin is being forced to watch all that unfolds through Morgoth's eyes. Does this imply that Morgoth is omniscient or omnipresent? How is Morgoth able to observe and eavesdrop on events happening miles and miles away from him? And if he is able to do that, why doesn't he do it more often? For instance, snooping out the location of Gondolin. Is it maybe something he's only able to exercise over men? Is it something that he poured his spirit into when he spoke the curse over Hurin and his family? The Valar have displayed gifts of foresight, but this remote observation or telepathy or whatever it is doesn't appear often, does it? Okay, that's an interesting question, Jimmy.
It is.
What do you got, KnewBetta?
So I think this question is up to interpretation of what you think he's doing. So remember, it constantly says throughout the first age he has spies. Yeah. He has spies all throughout, and we know his power doesn't reach in places that are protected. So Doriath is protected. So he does not see Turin through the whole time when Turin's growing up. He doesn't know anything what Turin's doing. When he's in Nargothrond, he doesn't know what Turin's up to. Anything.
That's right.
When Turin's out in the wild, he knows, hey, this is going on. He hears things. I think he means more that as opposed to he's just omnipresent, literally just hearing and seeing everything. I think the eyes of the White Tower, I think that's very telling. That saying, the eyes of Barad-dûr, when we say, Sauron can see it, they're using a Palantir to do this. Whereas Morgoth is more powerful than them, and he probably does have some semblance of, some sight to see what's going on in places that aren't, held under the sway of, Ulmo. So the rivers, absolutely. He's not seeing anything by the rivers.
We also know he's not seeing anything in Doriath. Remember, he's protected explicitly.
And Gondolin is explicitly protected by Ulmo. It's surrounded. There's a fog where you can't even get to the entrance without knowing exactly where it was. The eagles surrounded and protected. So it's places like this where he's definitely, if he does have that power, he's not seeing into it. And then the spies. Remember, when Hurin goes out, Hurin's not in any protected place, but he yells at where the direction of Gondolin is. He doesn't know exactly where it is, but the spies see him, not Morgoth literally just saying, I saw him. It says spies go back.
Spies, they now know, at least in the general area where it is now. Yeah.
So I think Morgoth's power is that such where if you read the text, he gives his power out and things have his power and they persist and they use it to Morgoth's, benefit. And that is where his eyes and ears come from. Okay. He is spread out throughout the world.
I like that. And I want to speak specific. I'm going to pull some texts from Morgoth's Ring and from Children of Hurin to sort of talk about why he's not these other things. He's certainly neither omniscient nor omnipresent, right? Those powers are reserved for Eru alone. The Valar do have some ability, we've seen this before, to see, know, or hear things from far away. But even then, even with Manwë and Varda, right, he's able to see farther with Varda by his side. Those powers are still finite. And here's the more important thing. That's only powers of those Valar. Morgoth by this time, or Melkor at this time, is permanently incarnate. So he is even more limited, right? He doesn't have those Valar abilities anymore. Tolkien explains in Morgoth's Ring that in this way, by becoming permanently incarnate, Morgoth lost or exchanged or transmuted the greater part of his original angelic powers of mind and spirit while gaining a terrible grip upon the physical world, end quote. So no, he has given up those Valar-like powers in exchange for more control over the physical world of Arda. So no, he's not omniscient. No, he's not omnipresent. However, like the other Valar, he was present during the music. So he is omniscient insofar as the general history of things is concerned, because if it's in the music, he would know it. But Turin's fate wasn't going to be in the music because, well, I don't know how detailed the music got in that regard, but I'm just going to say that he's a man, and therefore he possesses free will and the ability to shape his fate beyond the music. So his fate could not have been in the music.
Yeah, and it specifically says that that men's fate is not known by the Valar.
That's exactly right. And because men can shape their world outside of the music, there's no way that the music would have contained all of the details of Turin's life. But here's the real kicker, and this is sort of cheating in a way, right? Christopher Tolkien actually almost speaks directly to this question in his introduction to the Children of Hurin. He writes, "The torment that he devised for Hurin was to see with Morgoth's eyes. My father gave a definition of what this meant. If one were forced to look into Morgoth's eye, he would see, or receive in his mind from Morgoth's mind, a compellingly credible picture of events distorted by Morgoth's bottomless malice. And if indeed any could refuse Morgoth's command, Hurin did not." So First of all, doesn't that sound a little bit like Sauron and Denethor there, right? The compellingly credible picture of events.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think back to Glaurung when I see this. Yeah. It's like Glaurung's literally like, you're not going to save your family? You're going to go save Finduilas? Like, you're bugging. Like, what are you doing? Like, and he's like, Thorin's like, yeah, you're right. Like, he could only see that his family was going to be disappointed. Glaurung was literally telling him, your family going to look at you in scorn. Like, you're running after this one when they're living in squalor. And, you know, it's exactly what it is I'm picturing by you saying that, you know, Morgoth's eye and what he's forcing him to see. It's amazing.
And then there's this hint that maybe he couldn't have forced him. If indeed any could refuse Morgoth's command, Hurin did not. In other words, it's possible, because if you read it this way, right, receive in his mind from Morgoth's mind, that's when we get into Osanwe. When we learn about Osanwe, one of the things we learn is that both parties have to be willingly participating. You can't force your thoughts on another sentient being the way Osanwe functions. If that's the case, if that's how Morgoth is communicating these things to Hurin, in theory, Hurin could have refused the command, but he did not. Christopher Tolkien actually goes on to explain why. It's because he was prideful. He thought he'd already beaten Sauron in this debate, or Morgoth in this debate. Yeah. And so he felt like he could handle whatever Morgoth threw his way. And then, of course, he also just wanted to know about his kids.
About his kids. Which is just
about his kids. Heartbreaking. That poor guy. I mean, Hurin just, brutal stuff.
Is brutal what he learns of and sees, and then for Morwen to ask him.
And then, I know, to be let loose at the end only to run into your wife for the last hours of her life. Oh,
and he didn't have the heart to answer her.
No, how could you? Yeah. All the things that he's seen over the years. No, he's not going to tell her those things.
It's tough.
Well, folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast, but come back again next week when so passes Denethor, son of Ecthelion.
In the days of Gondor that you have known. Folks, Alan and I want to thank the members of the team PPP, editor Jordan Reynolds, Barliman Becca Davis, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and website guru Phil Dean.
Indeed. Speaking of the website, please visit us there at theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got show notes, outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch, including the new chapter art from Megan.
You'll also want to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast is first and foremost a podcast about the books. So if you're interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link for it in the library. The PPP gets a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed, we do. And we also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdance contribution tier. I'll start with DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, and Dylan in Australia.
There's also Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, Zaksu in Illinois, Brian in Texas, Sarah in New Jersey, June in Ireland, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, Connor in North Carolina, Keith in Alabama, Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Ann in Kentucky, Roger in Michigan, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed, thank you.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe now through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your understanding of the differences between the deaths of Aragorn and Denethor. See, we can be serious from time to time. To Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. Visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Please be sure to still email the question to Barliman. Even though Barliman's been a lot more reliable lately, there's still a lot of mail to sort through. We'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
As always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.